Can they fundamentally change and improve lives of people in Indonesia? What are the technologies and platforms, the benefits and challenges, and most importantly, and the reason we are all gathered here today, what is the impact microfinance can have and will have on their future? Today we will hear from industry leaders and experts who will share their insights and perspective on this very important subject. Just to give you a quick rundown of today's events, we've started a little late, but we'll catch up in time. We'll start by a keynote address from M2P, who are our sponsors today, M2P Fintech. We'll then continue with a keynote video on GIFT City, which is the pet project of Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji. At 4:30, we'll start on a panel discussion on today's topics, Fintech for Microfinance in Indonesia, with an exciting panel of thought leaders. We'll have enough time for about 20 minutes for the Q&A, and then we'll do a closing and a word of thanks at the end of the evening. So we should end up by about 5:30, 5:40. So brace yourselves, we have some really interesting stuff going on in the next 2 hours. Before we start, fintech and finance in general, you will all agree, does not get the credit it deserves, right? And everybody thinks it's quite a boring topic, right? Or it's very hard to understand generally. But the innovation and development in this sector has really been the driving force behind why businesses have become so agile and can move much faster today, right? We'll all agree. I'm therefore quietly confident that this event will give you a lot of insight into microfinance, which is such a big part and lives of people in Indonesia today. But before we begin, I would like to introduce our partners. We have the Indonesia Economic Forum, PT Infotech Solutions, Intellectual Business Community, and Kairos. Our sponsor for today is M2B Fintech, as I said earlier. But before we start, since I think they have a pressing event to go to after this, I would like to firstly thank Malvika Priyadarshini, Councillor Economic and Commercial of the Embassy in India, and Mr. Bashir Ahmed, who is the Deputy Head of Chief of Mission, to come up and say a few words. Thank you so much for your time. Bashir ji, please come up. Round of applause, please.
Good evening, good afternoon, selamat sore, namaskar. I consider that today we are meeting at a very, very opportune time. This is very important because I think this gathering today symbolizes a great initiative by, of course, M2P and the IIBF towards uplifting a large segment of humanity. As you might know, that COVID pandemic had kind of made a sort of setback to the poverty removal efforts, and I see the role of microfinance with the help through fintech solutions can provide a real boost in that direction. And therefore, this meeting today, which is in my view from diplomat's perspective, taking place in a post-pandemic world in 2024, when all the countries have more or less stabilized their economy, and they are now able to focus more towards poverty removal and empowerment of the communities. This event, fintech solutions for microfinancing, has a very important element in that direction. So thank you M2P, thank you IIBF for drawing our attention and bringing this event to the embassy. I would say that India has come up very well post-pandemic. We have not only emerged as a 5 trillion economy, but we are moving rapidly towards becoming a 3 trillion economy by 2030. You know, India under the leadership of our Prime Minister Modi has set a target for Viksit Bharat, if I say, which translates into developed India by 2047. Similarly, Indonesia has set a target for itself, which is called Indonesia Emas, or Emas Indonesia, by 2045. There is a great deal of bonhomie and understanding between our leadership. Prime Minister Modi and President Joko Widodo share a great deal of understanding and goodwill among themselves. Prime Minister has always been very fond of visiting Indonesia. Similarly, President Widodo went for our presidency during the G20. So I think the current meeting, the business event, is taking place at a very opportune time. It tries to build on to the relationship which has been built, which has been kind of which exists between our two leaders and two countries. This is also a time when both countries are now celebrating 75 years of diplomatic relationship. So we have completed 75 years in our diplomatic journey. It is not a small moment, it's a quite sizable time. And therefore, what could be the better kind of effort to celebrate that journey, provided we start with by talking about empowerment and through microfinancing schemes. So I think this is a great initiative. Ultimately, I will basically, I know of course the experts will speak on the topic. I'll say if I see India has a great experiment with microfinance. If you recall, in 1974, India first launched a scheme called Seva, which is a self-financing scheme, self-empowerment in 1974 in Gujarat. It has emerged as a very successful initiative and scheme, and it is continuing till today. Similarly, our Prime Minister has launched a very big program called what you call as the Mudra scheme, which has been giving financing to the people, the poor people, without taking bank guarantees. So this is a way of how a developing country is trying to build on to the community to development. After Mudra, we also have a scheme called Jan Dhan scheme, which seeks to open bank accounts of the poorest of the poor. So I think, and if I see that the trajectory of both countries, India and Indonesia, they are more or less similar in a way. Both are developing countries, both coming from the past of non-alignment movement and things like that. So our GDP and the market economies structures, most of them are the same. So I think the challenges, therefore, for microfinancing are also more or less similar. As a layman, I see the most important challenge which microfinancing today is facing, and I would like the panelists and the organizers to address, if possible, is one, innovation. This is an era of technology and developments. So if the microfinancing schemes doesn't innovate as rapidly as the technology is changing, there is a greater chance that they might lag behind. So I think the panelists, I will appeal you to address to the innovation of the challenge of innovation. The other thing which I see, and which is partly bureaucratic, which is a challenge for microfinancing in the developing countries, is regulatory barriers. All the centralized banks have created so many kind of regulations, which hinders the proper growth of microfinancing. I think from this forum today, a message could go out also to reduce as much as possible the regulatory measures, which can support the microfinancing. Of course, I will not take much of your time. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and have a good day. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you so much. All right, so let's get along with the program today. We'll start with the presentation from M2P. Can I have Deepti and Kannan out here? Deepti is VP and Head Business Solutions, International Business, M2B Fintech. And Kannan is VP and Head Pre-Sales, Lending Solutions, M2B Fintech. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. How are samosas and chai or coffee? Did you all get good snacks? Yeah, like them? Okay, we'll have more coming your way. Okay, yes, the slides are up. Very quickly, we'd like to just give you a picture of what M2P as a company does, who we are, and what we are here to share with you. We have lots to share. We'll try to keep it as short as possible. But very specifically, what we have to share with you on the subject of microfinance. Okay, very quickly, my name is Deepti Mittimani. I represent international business at M2P. When I say international business, M2P's background has started in India. We are headquartered in India. We have slowly started our expansion outside about a few years ago. We have set up a decent base in the Middle East, and now it's our responsibility to bring what M2P does in the ASEAN markets with focus on Indonesia and a few other countries. So here we are sharing with you what we do here. Before we move ahead, I'd like to share a very quick anecdote with you, right? This happened about a year and a half ago. 2022, 17th November, the world's population reached 8 billion. We were at our company management off-site meeting, and we were all sitting, and this news came on everybody's screen. And we said, hey, so what? And that's when, as a company, we decided that we must play some small role in making our mark for this 8 billion people, right? So that's when we decided to take an ambitious goal that as a fintech company trying to bring financial services to the masses, from our side, we will contribute to at least 100 million people anywhere in the world, right? So that's our mission, bring financial services to at least 100 million people. How have we done so far? 25 million people covered under formal credit, various different ways, different markets, right? We're not saying it's only happening in this country or that country, but we have, thank you so much, we have been able to, through our services and products, and of course our customers and partners, been able to bring financial services to 25 million people. 75 million more to go. It's not a small work, but we're hoping that with our presence in markets like this, and of course with partners, some sitting among yourselves, we will be able to reach our target very soon. So yes, with that, I'd like to quickly give you a rundown of what we plan to do today here, right? But before we go there, let's just look at why we wanted to speak about microfinance. As a digital fintech, as a digital payments company, M2P does a lot of different things. We do fairly highly innovative payments. We do banking, we do lending, we do various financial services, but why microfinance? And we just started studying, and we were, also sharing with some of you earlier today, the kind of important trends that point us to why we should be doing microfinance, and why microfinance is important not just for companies like us, but for the growth of societies in general. Numbers are there, it's for everybody to take away, but I'll just point out two important aspects, right? Indonesia has over 20,000 microfinance institutes. Did we even know that? Right? And what are they doing? They're actually the real people taking the financial services out to the masses, to the last mile. We want to work with them. That's one key takeaway. And the second big takeaway is women entrepreneurs can add $135 billion to the GDP. Now that is massive, right? If we are able to partner and bring the right financial services, along with financial services, financial literacy, and some other similar programs, imagine the kind of impact it will have on our society and the growth of the nation. Other numbers are there, but these are the real takeaways that we found, right? So just to highlight, this is why microfinance is important. This is why bringing financial services to the masses, to the last mile, or where it is needed. When we say last mile, please do not always think it is the rural areas or it is the far-flung areas. Trust me, urban areas also have last mile connectivity problem. Urban areas too have problems where cash access or credit access is not easy. And that's what we mean by last mile. Where financial services are needed, where credit is needed, bring it there. Of course, how? Through technology. That's really what we do. Moving on to the next one. We want to share how we have solved some of the problems in other markets. But before we go there, right, because the topic again here is microfinance, I want to leave you all with some questions as to what are the challenges of microfinance companies, right? Or forget microfinance. What does financial inclusion mean? Or if you're a lending company, if you're a financial institution, if you're a bank, you're a microfinance house, what all are the problems that you're saddled with and you're not able to move to the next level? And how can technology solve that problem for you? Again, too many questions that we have, kind of done our research on, but I'll point out to some very important ones. Multiple times you will have to visit the far-flung areas or areas where, the unbanked population lives. That's not easy. That is why you need technology to solve that problem. Doorstep is not easy when you don't have internet. Doorstep banking is not easy on islands, the thousands of islands that Indonesia has. How do you solve that problem? We have solved it. We'll share with you. How long do you think customers can continue to do very basic services? Imagine today, financial inclusion still means giving a very basic bank account. Why? Everybody in the world is doing commerce and payments and purchases online. Don't you think that is financial inclusion? Don't you think that is to go to the masses and not just giving a basic bank account? How do you graduate people from a basic bank account to the next level? Financial inclusion also, financial services means insurance, mutual funds, so many different things. Why don't we talk in those terms? Why are we only talking bank accounts? So graduating customers from a basic financial service to the next level. And while doing all of this, how do we stay profitable? How do we run this in a sustainable manner? So many different questions, and that's what we sought to answer through our platform. And of course, it's not just a technology service. We also offer operational services, and that's what we are here to share with you. I will move on to the next one, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Kannan, who himself is a microfinance expert and has worked with many microfinance institutions across the world, also in this region with some, and he will share what we have done and how we have solved some of these problems. Kannan.
Thank you, Deepti. So my name is Kannan. So Indonesia taught me one thing when I visited here. Kannan means right. Okay, thank you guys for that. So when you look at some of the top problems, we work with South Africa, we work with Philippines, MENA region, we work predominantly in India when I'm talking about a microfinance. And these are the problems that continues to be more than a decade, right? We continue to solve and multiple kind of a problems do come in, right? One is, the operational cost, right? Customer acquisition cost, right? They continue to rise, and you pay more for the field officers, right? And your profit margin shrink, right? Your cost of capital increases. So this is an everlasting problem, right? Unless you have a great operational excellence, right? And the second is, when I say fraud, there are, certain bad apples in the barrel, but the barrel by itself is, very good. Because, the kind of, work these field officers do, and whoever, in the microfinance or, financial inclusion is tremendously applaudable. And, certain times, they infringe on, fraud or, customer protection. So your software, your technology should really help not to do that, right? So we can do that. Third is the same thing, right? The attrition that happens either on the customer side or employee side, field officer side, right? How do you really take it? Because the field officer does not have a loyalty for you, right? Because they have a loyalty for incentives, right? We have to increase the fee income for them in a way, right? And third is how do you really really look at the newer models. PNM is here, right? What they have done is really path breaking, and very thankful to learn from them, right? Whether it is their Senium mobile or how they have really looked at the model and expanded, right? The outreach, that is something that is highly applaudable. And also there are papers that is there in the Harvard, right, and which is talking about those kind of case studies, which is really good. So these are the problems. I heard that when we are coming here, right, and I understand that a lot of people here, some of the practitioners, and they do really work with not only the microfinance but also the MSME, right? And the first line that you are looking at is very interesting again. Indonesia is telling us, right, there is a right? What is ultra micro business, right? So in India, they call it more like a kind of a small shop, or in Philippines, they call it as a seri store, right? And this kind of a people are cash rich. What I understand from Indonesia, like, good thing. And this country is not having a lot of poverty. And second great thing about this country is, lot of gender imbalance. When I say imbalance, it's a good thing, again, where, most of the women, entrepreneurs, or, they want to, start something on their own and, contribute. They don't know, they are contributing to the GDP, but they do, right? So they are financially aware, right? Never underestimate, your customers. Today, they are having a smartphone, they are financially very aware, and they can carefully think that, what is BRI is giving, what is this microfinance is giving, what is PNM is giving, right? So they can, evaluate those kind of, options and then pick the right choice, right? So today they are very aware. The other thing is, when we talk about the MSMEs, again, how do they really, so the credit needs are not like, you give a loan, right? And then give additional loan or a top up or an enhancement. So that is not going to help. Today, if you look at, one of the Indian concepts that what we do is we give a loan for a day. So what we call it as a kind of, EDI, right? So that's a daily installment. Somebody takes a lump sum loan, but, he will pay that, over probably, let's say that, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, but, he will do that. You probably heard Kata book, right? So that is, really helping, this ultra micro MSMEs, right? The second thing is, something which is, risk adjusted, right? So you don't have to, really do something like a fixed interest, right? How can you, create a product, right, where it is risk adjusted, personalized, tailor it, and then, deliver, right? The next thing is, graduation. Deepti has already talked about it. How do you graduate? You cannot, keep your microfinance customers as a microfinance customer forever, right? So they have to become kind of, that footprint, digital footprint has to, increase. And they should become, either in Perfindo or SLK or all that, they should have a credit history, and then once they are into that kind of maturity, they should start getting into a retail world, right? You should have multiple entry for that women or a man who are into that, and then they should be able to get an educational loan, housing loan, right, auto loan, so on and so forth, right? So that is what I'm talking about. Practically, people think that, this is a big data. How can I mine the data, right? And then provide a smaller incremental credit, which will create a big impact, right? So if you look at, these are all very, very small things that you do that really leads to, a very significant change in the society or impact. So that is what we are going to talk about here, right? So what we do is like, technology, right? So technology is, only one portion of, the entire gamut, right? So how do you really do the technology adoption? Today, if you look at that, branches, right, they are a little bit, backing in the technology compared to the field officers. The field officers are really smart, right? How do they really pick up the technology today, right? And, second thing is, how do you cross-sell the products? I think I have the same thing that I heard, this morning, right? How do you cross-sell the product? It's not about the loan, right? So you have to, help them with open, accounts, CASA accounts, micro insurance. And India, if we look at, many years ago, so they have started, selling the household appliances, solar-related, green products, right, through the microfinance, those kind of things. How do you sell that far and wide? The other problem that, when we talk about the far and wide, how do you really, anywhere, any microfinance, right, you go and talk about it, one problem they will constantly tell is online, offline, right? So if you go to, very rural areas, how do you solve that problem? Either for your payments, collections, or, sourcing, right? And the last is like, I think Mr. Ahmed also talked about, how do we create an innovation, right? The innovative compliance, either for the data protection, backups, right, all of that. And how do you create a very conducive environment so that, you will not worry about, your compliance or regulations, rather you will worry about your core business, right? So part of the problem is, getting solved with, one of the products that we have. It's an app that is called, loan book, right? So what it does is, this loan book did not, just appeared from the sky or anything, okay? And this is pretty much, I can compare it to Senium that P&M has. So this particular thing is an evolution of, the multiple years of work that we have done in the field, understanding, the field officers and, the credit officers and the customers, borrowers, all of them, what they do really, in microfinance, self-help groups, so on and so forth, right? So one is like, it becomes an assistant. So when you have the mobile, so you don't just, have a menu-driven things that, you go there, go here, so on and so forth. What it tells is what you have to do for the day, right? You have to do a collection, right? You have to, continue with the center meeting. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks to be completed today. So that is exactly what it tells. And then the particular field officer, the executive, so he really, continues to, do that, right? And after that, he gets into kind of, the regular rhythm of the work, right, in the field, right? The second is, this problem that I talked about, online, offline. So that has been solved out here, right? So this is a kind of a smart sync that happens between, the mobile device and the back office. And most of them, it's a SaaS model on the cloud, and therefore you don't have to worry about the data synchronization. The third thing is, geotagging. This is again that you talk to any country, people will say that I want to have supervisory tech, meaning that I need to know where my field officers are, where my relationship officers are. Are they collecting at the right place? Are they meeting the customers, borrowers in the right place? Okay? And are they tagging the house, the business premise, right? That, small micro stores, right, wherever, are they tagging it rightly? Like today we have the technology so much, right, we can very easily understand if somebody is doing a fraud. So when you geotag it, when you are location aware, right? The next thing is, the collection, debt management, counseling, when you have a debt, NPL, right, non-performing loans, how you can do that. All that you can, do it in the app itself. And the second is, the next one is like, the other thing that I talked about, the cross-sell, right? How do you do the account opening? How do you really help them with the insurance, whether it is life or a term or, it's for, the credit itself, all of that. And, all of this, you can do it in the mobile app itself. It's a very simple mobile app developed as a human-centric design, right? So, and therefore, it really helps you, right? Especially the field officer. I will tell a small story, right? And what happened is, like a few years ago, we was opening our software in one of the states in India. And then, for that particular microfinance, people were, the field officers, they were resigning from the competitive organization and then joining this organization. So I had a interview with, few guys, and then I asked them one question, then why you guys are like, leaving that good organization and then joining this? And then very interesting answer that they gave me, sir, we are joining here because of your loan book. Because the loan book is so good, I can do a lot of things. If I have to do it in 30-35 minutes, with the loan book I can do it in 20 minutes. Which means, I can handle more productivity, more case loads, and I will get more incentives. As simple as that. So if you look at what we can do together, right? So this is not like a Zen goes, right? One hand doesn't make a noise. Like we have to do it together, right? So what we can achieve is the human error rates, right? So we can put a validation, and we can create an app in such a way that the data that is flowing from the field is near perfect, right? There could be errors, and that's why I'm saying that it's near perfect, right? So we can achieve that. And this takes a lot of time, right? So Deepti talked about the multiple visits, right? So we can reduce all of that. When I say reduce the distance to the customers, I don't really mean the physical distance, right? Your empathy, how you can, improve the empathy to the, the last mile customers, right? And women customers mostly. And then, the return on investment that you can, do definitely 3x to 10x that we have done that even for a bank, right, on the microfinance side. So they have, grown rapidly, right? I'm not saying that we have to, recklessly grow the microfinances because, it's a very careful program. So you have to, grow with sense, responsibility. And the TAT is something that, all the people worried about, the field officers, how the credit officers work, how the operation works, right? Can I do the disbursements, funding? So from the single day itself, right? Which is impossible, right? In microfinance, you take a week, 14 days for a complete cycle to happen, right? The assessment and all of that, but at least, you can reduce the TAT. So I have seen that in India that, from 14 days as a norm, it has, come to sometimes a single day, sometimes even like, 1 to 3 days, right? That kind of a TAT. So this reduces the anxiety of the customers, right? And they know that when I come to a particular microfinance and I will get a loan, and therefore, I will also get the loan now, right? Within 2 days or, 3 days. That reduces that anxiety too much, right? And the other thing is, we talked about the customer acquisition cost. And if you have all of this, certain parameters that we talked about, definitely your customer, acquisition or the customer stickiness and everything improves. That is the last point that you are seeing here. And the other thing is, many guys that, we have taken for the microfinance, right? They had been with a smaller system, Excel sheet, or, they were, doing it with some software, right, legacy software and all that. The primary reason I can see that, the common denominator I can see that is, why they came to us for a migration, right, why they came to us for, a better system is that point. They really get stunted to grow, right? So we are working with one of the companies now onboarding from Philippines, right? And this particular company, had the same problem, right? So they have saturated with whatever the particular software, right, that was doing, but they're not able to scale, from that point onwards. And then, this is exactly what we have done for that, one of the top, banks in India. So wherein which, they have grown more like, 6x, right? So the moment we have onboarded, they had 103 branches, and next year itself, right? So they went to 310 branches, which is, phenomenally high, right? So they got, stuck with one particular legacy software. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Right. I didn't know that. I learned that now. So we have to be careful when we talk to Kannan. Okay, so I hope that was a little useful about what we do as a company and also what we want to do in Indonesia. We'd like to close by letting you know that M2P as a company has recently launched here in Indonesia, and we are here for the long term. So we would like to reach out to as many of you as we can, and where possible, partner and grow together. Today, we are in about 20 markets across the world already. In this region, we have our offices in Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam. We are operating from multiple delivery centers. We are a fairly large company. We have 1,300 plus, colleagues working across, and we hope to have a few added Indonesians added to our team very soon. So that's us. We'll continue chatting today through the event and later, and I'll hand it back to Patrick for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepti. Thank you, Mr. Wright. That was really interesting. People, we won't torture you anymore with more presentations. We'll start with the panel discussion. And we have a super exciting... Oh yeah, sorry, we got a video, just reminded. So we just have the video played now, which is a video of Gift City.
The nation stands tall today in the global world order as the third largest economy, fastest growing economy amongst G20 countries, third largest startup ecosystem, and fifth largest equities market. Under the dynamic leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, the country is spearheading a path-breaking initiative of developing its very own International Financial Services Center. In today's globalized world, international financial centers play a pivotal role in facilitating cross-border financial flows and transactions. To unleash the true potential of India, emerging as international financial services powerhouse, the Government of India in the year 2015 operationalized country's first International Financial Services Center in Gift City, Gujarat. To facilitate foreign currency transactions, the IFSC has been designated as a non-resident zone under Foreign Exchange Management Regulations. This unique carve-out makes GIFT IFSC as a zone which is distinct from domestic Indian economy. The country's maiden IFSC is being developed as a leading international financial center with globally benchmarked regulations, competitive tax regime, and ease of doing business. To benchmark the IFSC with global financial centers, the Government of India in 2019 took a path-breaking step by establishing the International Financial Services Centers Authority, IFSCA. The IFSCA has been established as a unified statutory authority to develop and regulate financial institutions, financial products, and financial services within IFSCs in India. With IFSCA assuming its statutory mandate from October 2020, the country's maiden IFSC has witnessed sustained growth and is emerging as a preferred jurisdiction for availing full spectrum of international financial services. The banking sector, which acts as the lifeblood for any financial center, is witnessing sustained growth. With market infrastructure institutions firmly establishing presence, the capital market ecosystem is witnessing accelerated growth. India, a land having a cultural affinity towards gold since time immemorial, has been a major global consumer of precious metal.
Right, yeah, GIFT City, that's a new project of Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, a big one to boost the financial sector, not only in India, but for Indians globally. We have an exciting and dynamic lineup of panelists with us. So we let them, I'll just call up them up to the stage. We have Deepti, who is here again, Deepti Mitimani, VP and Head Business Solutions, International Business, M2B Fintech. We have Sunar Basuki, Operations Digital and IT Director, PT Permodalan National Madani, or PNM. Silakan Pa, go ahead. Awasthi, who is the CTO of JULO, and Prashant Krishnan, Advisor PwC Strategy, and who is the moderator for the panel discussion. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Deepti, for being on our panel. Please, go ahead. Then you can pass this around.
So I'll use it. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Patrick. and looking forward to an exciting 1 hour of discussion with some interesting participants. It's about an hour or so that we'll talk to each other, and hopefully we'll have a lot of content to talk to you about, and we'll try to keep about 10-15 minutes of questions for everybody in the audience, right? And hopefully it'll be interesting and engaging, and hopefully we'll be able to provoke a lot of questions to this discussion, right? So we had a chance to hear about MTP quite a bit, right? So maybe we can start with also understanding a little bit from you, could you explain a little bit more of the role that PNM plays in the Indonesian economy, and about yourself and how you've been doing in the space, Pa?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity sharing to all of you about the Permodalan Nasional Madani, PNM. PNM is a state-owned enterprise, has a specific purpose, which is empowering underprivileged women and micro businesses. Empowering means that PNMs not only providing the financial loan, financial capital, but providing also intellectual capital and social capital. Our vision is to be becoming leader in the financial institution, especially in the group lending industries, through the empowering program to scale up our customer businesses. Maybe we can tell you about the target at segmenting from PNM. If we're talking about the business structure in Indonesia, we know there is divided in 4 groups: large scale, medium scale, small scale, and micro scale. And when the micro scale, it contribute more than 97% in Indonesian tenaga kerja. And when we slice the micro segment, and there is a big potential player, and PNM put the segmentation there, and you see there is 15 million now customer active in PNM, and is becoming the leading financial institution in especially in the group lending industry. And we surpassing the Grameen Bank in 2021. Grameen Bank is now 10.4 million active customer, and we already 15.2 millions. And we have uniqueness service in Indonesia compared to the other financial company, because we have empowering program.
Right.
We not only provide loan, but we insert the intellectual capital, like a lot of training, a lot of coaching to our customer. I think that's all about the PNM.
Right, Pa. Thank you very much. And I think you spoke of a lot of important subjects in that, right? How you don't just give money, but it's also the entire life cycle of the borrower, and really the education and everything else. Thank you so much for the introduction and telling us about PNM, right? Pa Firlie, could you also help us understand a little bit about what you do and the role of AFTECH in the local Indonesian economy, especially when it comes to microfinance and the segment of borrowers we're talking about?
Okay. Thanks, Prasan. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me thank you all for inviting us, me from AFTECH. AFTECH is association, Fintech Association Indonesia. We are the largest Fintech associations in Indonesia. We are established in 2016. We have now we have 350 members so far, with coming from different business models. We started with only 2 big business models, and during the 2016, peer-to-peer lending and the payments. Now we grew up, and we have 25 different business models now into the cluster. So we divide our members into clusters. We have 25 of them. So so it's a different business models that we are from peer-to-peer lending, payments, aggregator, credit scoring, advisory, so on. So that's where we are now. We are also an SRO, self-regulatory organization. We are mandated by the OJK, finance regulator in Indonesia. By the way, the regulator, we have 2 regulators here in Indonesia, Central Bank and OJK. And then also, so we are playing a very strategic roles. We are the first line of defense in terms of making sure that the compliance of our members. So, we have to make sure, we apply standards and all that for the, compliance reporting and all that. And then we are talking to the regulator regularly. Right. So one of the main functions or responsibility of AFTECH is actually the to provide the literacy, right, the informations, because Indonesia has in 2022 we have 85% of financial inclusions in Indonesia. I think 2023 might just increase a little, but I think slightly below 90%. I can't remember the exact number. But anyway, but unfortunately, the financial literacy is only 49%. Right. Financial literacy of Indonesia. Digital financial literacy is only 39%, so very low. That's why we often heard about the news in the news. Well, it's slightly fewer now, but last year we heard a lot of illegal lending, right, shark lending, but in online platform. So like the terms of pinjol, which is pinjaman online here, is really a dirty word here. Right. Because it's literally it's an online lending. Correct. Nothing wrong with that, but the term of pinjol is really people like disgusted, like it's a dirty word. Yeah. So if I say pinjol to you, it's like, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, so I don't want to say in the stage here, but anyway, so that's part of the literacy that we have to do. So we need to educate people, because at the end of the day, the victims of these illegal shark loans are really, those are people that are not aware of who they need to deal with, right? Whether it's licensed or non-licensed, whether it's it's a banking or it's a corporation or cooperasi, whatever, that the things that they need to be aware of. And also sometimes they are reluctant, or they refuse to read the fine words, right? Fine terms and conditions, which we need to read. And we also do our we do have our flagship events usually at the end of the year. We host Indonesian Fintech summit. Usually at the end of the year, started as 11/11, ending in 12/12. So within one period, plus or minus 1 month, we are doing our literacy very aggressively in those days. I think that's pretty much from now on.
Right.
Thanks,
Well, thank you very much for that, sir. And it's great that you have a self-regulating body in Indonesia, right, where you go beyond just statutory regulations and actually frame rules, especially for the sector, especially because it's emerging. I won't use the word because you've now told me not to use it. I thought it was a kosher word. So only Firlie can say it. I can't say it. So could you tell us a little bit about JULO and what you do, and without using the words that Firlie has told us not to use? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Manoj. I work with a company called JULO. So JULO is a fintech startup in P2P lending space. So we work under the guidance of AFTECH to make the word that he used, like pinjol, has a better meaning. Let customers understand that, okay, online lending does not really mean bad. And that will be basically eradicating all those players from the market who are actually misusing it. So the whole point of having this fintech in lending was to get the customers out of the clutches of loan sharks who used to be there before the fintech actually prevailed. So I'll share something about JULO first. So JULO is committed to provide credit access to those customers or those consumers in Indonesia who are underserved by the current banks. So they do have access to banks. In fact, I was surprised to see the numbers that more than 97% of our customers, which is millions of customers out there, they do have a bank account, which is very great stats for this country, which is not usually the thing in Vietnam or Philippines, for example. But despite that, they do not have the credit access. So we are committed to that cause. But even beyond that, we want to help them enable have a better financial life altogether, right? It is beyond credit. That is our goal. That is our mission. How do we enable it today? We have an application. So on one side, we partner with a set of lenders who provide the capital to lend to people who need. On the other side, we have these borrowers. We are serving more than 2 million customers today. We have already served them. And we do more than 1 million loans every month. And how do math works, I'll share a bit later. So our product is a virtual credit card kind of a product. So any borrower in Indonesia can install JULO, they can register with JULO, they can log in, and then they can apply for a credit limit. When they apply for the credit limit, their application goes through a certain underwriting loan origination process. And if they are approved, once they are approved, this limit actually sits in their phone. Their phone acts like a credit card for them. So suppose they get a 10 million rupiah limit that sits in their phone, and it can be used for non-cash usage like pulsa, packet data, electricity bill, water bill, even train ticket, and so on, or cash usage. So they can transfer this money to their digital wallet like OVO or ShopeePay or GoPay and so on, or they can transfer it to their bank account for any emergency needs, right? And once you have done that, suppose every time you make a transaction, it actually becomes a loan. But what you pay back is a monthly installment. So there is just like a credit card bill, you pay only one installment every month, which is very clearly shown on the application. And there are easy to use repayment methods on the application. Very easily you can repay the money back and done. And we have a digital only collection staff which actually works on collecting the money digitally. So that is about JULO, and we have been operating since 2016, same time when AFTECH was founded, and we work with all these regulators like OJK, partners like AFTECH and AFPI very closely. Yeah.
Thanks, Manoj. So
maybe because Pa Bashir talked about innovation, so I'll just share that what we have done in the last year, right? So last year we shipped 3 big innovations to our customers. One was JULO Turbo, which allows customers to get access to cash in 5 minutes from installing the application to getting the money in 5 minutes. So this was only possible by re-engineering the entire engineering stack, and basically optimizing at every step and making it happen. So that was the innovation number one that we shipped. The second was JULO Education, which allows you, any school, any college, any online course, you can, as a parent, pay for your kids' education through JULO. It has been super powerful, super useful, very popular amongst our customers, and they have been using it very heavily. The third one we have recently launched in December is JULO Protect Plus, which says that the digital infrastructure, the hand phone that you use to use the JULO app for the loan, during the loan tenure, that hand phone is actually protected by an insurance against any theft, any fire, any other damage that happens to the phone. We have partnered with Koala and Sompo for this. Yeah, just wanted to share this. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Sure, thank you, Pa. As you can see, not all pinjol is bad. Some are good. But maybe, Deepti, you can come in right now, right? And maybe help answer the question. I think you had a very strong presentation from you and Pa Kannan on what M2P does, etc. But on a broader perspective, right, given that you're now in the Indonesian market, how can fintech come in and solve some of the challenges which we've seen in the local market? Like, for example, the perception challenge or the fraud challenges, etc. So what are some of the things that the fintechs can sort of do, or technology can do in the marketplace?
Well, in the larger realm of financial services, right? While we spoke about microfinance to some extent today, but microfinance or finance is something that must be made available to anybody who needs financial services. And who needs financial services today? Everybody. Right? So it's almost like a requirement that whether it is a supplier of financial services, be it a bank or a financial institution or a multi-finance company, whichever it is, right? They're all suppliers of the financial institutions. It's their responsibility to make their products and services available. And the second part is people the consumers of financial services should demand for better services, right? Now, demand for better services is not by saying, I'll go on a protest if my bank is not giving me ABC service, but demand for the rightful way of access, demand for better technology, for innovative products. Meaning, like JULO is saying, if I want to offer credit in 5 minutes, if technology makes it possible, make it happen. And then, of course, there is responsibility, like, Firlie said, that there has to be some bit of a responsibility that we take. Like, it has to be transparent, it has to be without fraud. Security is paramount in any financial service. So all of these things are responsibilities not only of a bank or only of a technology company like ourselves or only of a governing body, but it's everybody who plays in an ecosystem. So the point I would like to make is this is an ecosystem play. And for all of us to be able to better what we are doing, it is not one or the other company's responsibility, but for us to work together, not as competitors. That world has gone, right? It's a world of partnerships. Right. In a partnerships-driven world, it's always about how can a bank work with a fintech? How can a fintech benefit from bringing many banks together and not just bringing one bank or this bank or that bank? Right. It's not about government versus private. It's not about, this technology versus that technology, but what we have to actually go to the next level. And what is that next level? Secure financial services, innovative financial services, bring best of practices from outside. There's so much happening out there in the world, right? How can we bring some of those practices here? And then, how can we take whatever is best happening here outside? Right? So that is really the partnership-driven world, and that's, I would say, a responsibility of the entire ecosystem. And what we have done to some extent extremely well in India, we work with about 600 financial services companies. They could be fintechs, they could be banks, they could be multi-finance companies, they could be microfinance houses, they could be payment companies, right? So we have been able to bridge that gap between supply side and consumer side, consumption side, and we've also been able to show that partnerships is actually a better way to grow than grow individually, than compete. So yeah, I would say that's really what we look forward to do.
Right. Thank you for your perspective. Maybe we can go to Sunar, right? We are already in the future, but could you actually tell us could you walk us through your technology journey of how did technology play a role, or how did you get from where you were to your 15 million? So I suppose some of us may have started our careers much later, right? So maybe we may not have seen some of the early challenges. So how has the landscape really changed? So how did you really build out, and how did the technology function really help you get to your 15 million borrowers?
Yeah, I think so. It's very important, technology in financial industry. I'm telling you about our research for the technology readiness index for our customer is very low. So because the characteristic of our customer, contrary to the bank, if we provide the bank provide the credit facility to the credible people, but PNM give the credit to the poor people. Must be poor people. The indicator is not more than $2 a day per capita, and so the technology we need, because we have to make them easier, faster, and better, cheaper also, and it's hard to PNM to adopt the new technology to our customer, because the technology readiness index is very low. But the organization side and company side is, we now already implemented all digitalization in our business process from end to end. But we have a challenge how to force our customer to do the technology, because the education is low. There is no business license, there is no tax license. Everything doing the business in cash. So we have to struggling to educate them, to provide them the digital literacy, financial literacy, so on. But in the future, I think we have to adopt the technology, and M2P could be have a solution for that. So I think we already start to implement the technology since before pandemic, and now it's still ongoing, and we trying to have a new breakthrough how to teach our customer, because it's very low in the technology readiness index.
Right, thank you. So, Firlie, right? Thank you, by the way, for teaching us one more word, right? We have learned 2 Indonesian words today after coming here, better than Duolingo, right? We learned Kannan from Kannan, and
I can teach you another 100 words if you like.
Yeah. Maybe we can change the session. But could you tell us on how has Fintech really supported microfinance in Indonesia? And I think we've got a few challenges. I think we talked about customer education being one challenge, and we also talked about, I think, some of the things which you mentioned. But what are the other main big challenges, which you see in the local market, and how do you really see the Fintech industry really supporting the growth of microfinance in Indonesia?
Yeah, okay. Microfinance is very important in Indonesia. I think one of the sector that helps the country to come out from the crisis in 97, 98, and even most of the crisis, we are blessed because these MSME are still operating, doing the activities and all that, right? So that's the main things. And also, before I touch that, also I'm other in AFTECH, I'm also in Kadin, right? Chamber of Commerce. So last 2 weeks, I think, I stated in the forum that we are still optimistic that we're going to grow the economic. We're going to have GDP growth for this year above 5%, 5.5%. Despite the world GDP growth of 3.9%, or if I'm not mistaken. The reason is because the MSME. We are having political years this year, which means that this particular sector is going to move a lot. So, because we are expecting the political money coming also to the grassroots, so the economy will grow. So that's why we are forecasting 5.5 of GDP growth. Going back to your questions, Fintech, right? So during the pandemic time, it's really like giving us the silver linings in the dark clouds, right, at the time, because we experience a lot of business shutdowns, lockdowns and all that, right? So that expedites our digital economy, right? A lot of digital what do you call it? Digital capabilities, right? So in that area, the growth of fintech are really massive. Like we have a lot of fintechs helps the government to distribute social welfare funds, for example, through Prakerja. That was helped by the e-wallet. And then peer-to-peer lending also growing, because a lot of laborers being sacked at the time, so they are looking for business activity. They're starting business activities, tradings and all that. So a lot of peer-to-peer lending are helping them, because they are most of them are unbanked people, and then what else? So we have a lot of things that are growing, helped by these fintechs. The use of e-wallet. Now we have about 160 trillion rupiah of e-wallet. Kris, the QR Indonesian standards, the payment, the QR payment, Kris, the transactions is now about 230 trillion rupiah, which is quite significant, because I think they just created like 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. And then digital banks, the transaction of digital banks in Indonesia reaching up to 58,000 trillions rupiah, which is quite significant. So people are familiar, people are happy with the digital products, including financial products, right? Not to mention insurtech also, I forgot to mention. So this landscape creates will drive the digital economy even growing, right? Pak Sunar before mentioned 97% of the workforce are coming from the MSME, right? The Bank of Indonesia declares that 61% of MSME didn't get access to financial products, so they don't have banking services access. So the potential is quite big, right? And not to mention the digital economy in 2023 contribute 8% of the total GDP. 8%, according to Bain research, right? They also predicted that in 2025 it will grow to 14% of the total GDP.
Right.
So if you can imagine in 3 years' time, the growth of digital economy is more than the growth of the GDP itself.
Right.
So the potential is there. So we have Indonesia also have bonus demography. I think the average age of people in Indonesia is about 28, 29, slightly 29.2. Thank you, Mafika. So a bit higher than the older than the India, right? Slightly, yeah. So which is big market also, and also Indonesia is part of the ASEAN, right? We will claim that we are ASEAN going to be the fourth economic, the world economic, fourth world economic in the world. So it's very good market, potential is there, so and majority drive in the microfinance. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you. I think we can all see that adoption happening, right? Because even the small merchants have a curious, and everything which you mentioned, we can definitely see it even if we are not finance people. So, thank you for that perception. I guess, Manoj, the question is that everything seems to be rosy and positive, right? Where the industry is growing, there's technology available. So, what are the challenges as a P2P lender? What is the challenge? So what are the challenges as P2P lenders in the local market? What are other than, of course, the perception challenge which Firlie talked about, what are your other challenges in the local market?
Yeah, that's a small challenge. We'll go away, don't worry. So just want to add to what Firlie just said. Yesterday, I got to see a report that two nations that will be the fastest growing economy in the world will be India and Indonesia, the topmost. So it's very exciting. In the last decade, I think Fintech actually has grown a lot, right, and come a long way. But yes, there is a lot of ground to cover, as you just mentioned, and Sunar mentioned as well. A lot of ground to cover. And all this growth from technology perspective, if I can comment on that, is possible three factors primarily. One is the proliferation of internet and proliferation of mobile devices. That access has become possible now, right? Even to the most ground level, there is some level of handset is available and so on, right? The second is a lot of financial inclusion startups and companies, even banks have started focusing on that. And number three was a big deal. That is evolution of all these payment innovation happening across the world. Whether it's Chris in Indonesia or UPI in India, it's all really, really a lot, right? And it is happening at a massive scale, happening very, very fast. Coming to your question about challenges, actually, there are 4 or 5 points that I can share. And I would like to not call them challenges, I would call them opportunities. So first one is actually a regulatory landscape. So all the fintech, especially the P2P lending and all kind of lending, operates under regulations and for the right reasons, right? So I think we as companies must be ready for all this tightening in the regulations, because this is happening for a very right thing, right? It is to protect the consumer interest. And once that consumer interest is protected, once you deal with that short-term pain, you establish something very, very long-term, which is the consumer trust. So they can continue leveraging the services that you provide. So it is very, very important for us to, as companies, be compliant, understand the law of the land, and be compliant all the time, even if that means some short-term pain in terms of allocating some resources to ensure compliance, at all levels. And not only law of land, even Google and Apple, they are actually actively participating in this kind of compliance to ensure that that pinjol does not remain like a bad word, right? So that is the item number one, which is regulatory landscape. The second is the data privacy and protection. So there is a huge debate going on across the world. A lot of companies are following GDPR. India has passed their law. Indonesia passed their law last year. It will actually be in action in October this year. It is super critical for all these Fintech actually has this tech suffix to ensure that there is a robust cybersecurity infrastructure in place. There is a robust tooling in place to protect the sensitive data. There are robust processes in place in the organization. Your PII data cannot be, available to everybody. You must know that these are 20 people who have the PII access for this purpose, and that is it, right? So that is the data protection and privacy, and I see that most of the organizations already have this data privacy office, and it is doing very well. Number 3 is customer reach, and here I think we'll need to depend on the government infrastructure. Still, there are far places in Indonesia, corners, where they're lacking in the digital infrastructure, the access to internet or mobile and so on, right? So if that is solved, that will actually help us proliferate further. Number 4 is something that is not in our control as much. It's like economic downturns and some kind of situations like COVID, right? Whenever these kind of situations happen, it is inevitable that credit worthiness of borrowers will go down in general, right? So industries will be impacted, there'll be layoffs and so on. During that time, startups like JULO, they have to ensure that their risk mitigation strategies are modular, right? So we can quickly react to it. We can tighten where we need to. We can help these people who are impacted by the layoff, say, right? Because this is a temporary phenomenon. You need to actually help them with refinancing and other instruments and so on. The last one is actually about if you are into lending, you are doing underwriting effectively, right? And you want to do it fast, you want to do it in better. So when you want to do it better and fast, the only tool that you have is more data about the customers. And where do you get it from, right? So you have access to FDCs, you have bureau data available, application data that is submitted by the customer. Beyond that, how can you collaborate more within the ecosystem, as Deepti mentioned? That will become very critical, yeah, right? It is all about collaboration. So that is where I'll say that government, for example, or OJK, and even access to slick database, that will actually help. AFTECH, coming together, all the associations, right? Large financial institutions like banks, they coming together, and because these are problems that have to be solved in a global manner, otherwise it will never be solved in a holistic way, yeah, right? So I think I'll end that there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, thank you so much. So I think maybe I'll take a few group questions and then we can probably open it to the audience just to ensure everyone has it. So I think there are a couple of questions, right? I think one is, all of you spoke about education, right? And customer education or lender education. How do you actually solve that problem, Pa? So how do you solve it, Pa, and how do you solve it, Pa, Sunar, Basuki? What are your perspectives on that? How do you really get education going, or financial education going, or the digital literacy challenge which you mentioned going, Pa?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, right, part of our functions in AFTECH is actually financial literacy. So we do have a website called checkfintech.id, which is basically we are, like socializing. We are, promoting this kind of website all the time, right? This website is actually can check. We are telling people that before you deal with any of the fintech companies, you need to check whether that's legal or illegal, right? Because that was the main issue. By using our checkfintech.id website, you can check whether the company is licensed or not, and then plus you can also check the bank account, whether the bank account associated with a fraud or not, or scam or not, which is very useful personally to me also, right? Because you buying stuff online every time, right? Like just to make sure that somebody, if even though that you are browsing through the e-commerce, sometimes there's one or two people are reaching you on the private message, going directly and send the money to this account, and you check easily whether that bank account has been reported or not. It's very useful. So that's the thing that we are trying to do. Plus we posted on our social media about the how to become a good financial users. You need to be aware of the scams happening around, and then also like you give some educations on how to save, to do savings, for example, and all that. So and we are also collaborating with our financial advisors also within our member, and then and then we often hosted an event similar like this, to promoting what our members, what's the new technology that we are providing, what's kind of products that we are introducing to the people, and also we are also inviting the regulators just to give updates on the regulations and all that. And also we are also socializing the new regulations, obviously coming from the OJK, to not to our members, mainly our members as well as to the end users.
Right, but thank you. Sunar, would you like to add anything? Do all your 15 million borrowers know about all the cool things that Firlie mentioned?
Yes, the advantage of PNM that we have 63,000 employees as community development officer.
Wow, very very nice.
Our employee total is 70,000 employees. Wow. And another one is our business model. We have our community development officer meet regularly on weekly basis to our customer. So the infrastructure of human capital is okay, but the challenge is how we improve the competency of our community development officer. Right. Because there is the infrastructure, we need to socialize the new technology, and the other one, 98% of our community development officer is Gen Z or millennial, so it's easier for us to to socialize the digitalization to our customer.
Right, thank you, Pa. That's really good. Would you have something to add, Deepti? Yeah.
See, we come from a very different background, right? Sunar and Firlie, they literally are running massive organizations, but from a tech standpoint, right, or from anybody here who is into technology, how can we do anything about financial literacy, right? I mean, yes, we can take classes and coaching, but no, that's not what we mean. But see, as technology builders and somebody who brings innovations to platforms, how is it that we keep adding something which is going to make our customers graduate, right? We've used this word more than once today, and that graduation from whatever level you are to the next level, meaning when we started our financial services access, we probably just had a bank account. Then we graduated into cards, then we had different wallets, then we had access to credit cards, and then we borrow, and now we are investing, and then probably we are doing more, right? We're doing even cross-currency transactions. We cannot think of financial inclusion or microfinance as just accounts, right? What we have access to, how do we build technology which will also bring our customers, right, like JULO's customers or PNM's customers into that fold? How do we make that available to somebody like JULO, somebody like a PNM, is what we should constantly think of and build for.
Right, thank you. So I'm going to open up the question and answers to the audience. If there are no questions from the audience, I'll keep going, and you probably don't want to hear me. So questions from the audience for any or all of our members?
Wangi, CEO and founder of Awasthi, an agri-tech startup. And my question is to Basuki. In regards to farmers and farmer groups, does PNM provide some kind of support and services to also empower them? Because agri-tech or agricultural communities also have their own issues with working capital and having a sustainable lifestyle, basically. So does PNM support them?
We have many collaboration with the expert from the agriculture to provide the knowledge, technology to our customer in agriculture. And for example, we have a collaboration with Pondok Pesantren Al Ittifaq in Ciwidey. It's new, very technology in the agriculture, and we contribute for the greenhouse over there, and then we invite the expert, and we invite also our customer to do or learn how to do a modern farmer. I think yes, we support also to the agriculture sector.
Sir, my question is with you to you. So I was want to understand from you, how's the customers behaved, like you do lending in practically all the islands in Indonesia. How the customer behavior between islands? It's like similar kind of a repayment track and everything, or it's like different between the islands, or like geography?
For Sunar, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it depends. The culture in every island is different, and for example, in the Sumatra, they about the for example about the Sharia principle in the Sumatra is very strong, so we have to provide the financing based on the Sharia, and I think it's different every island in Indonesia.
From which point of view? Well, perfectly, would you
arah risiko? Dari arah risiko.
Oh, we have identified, for example, in the West Java, is a very risky trading, because the culture is quite different. I think every place in Indonesia have a different risk, but the high risk in West Java in Indonesia for a credit. I think when we confirm to the BRI, it's the same, in the same answer. That's Jawa Barat is Jawa Berat. Jawa Barat is Jawa Berat because it's a very risky credit, and in the south of Java is also very risky.
Perfectly, you can probably comment on the overall borrower behavior without pointing fingers at the provinces.
Sorry, I didn't get your name. Your name was? Askus, okay. Are you trying to look for companions or from Indonesia, or by profiling the person, or what? No, sorry, I was kidding. We are very diverse, Pak. So we have 17,000 islands in Indonesia. We have different race, like different. I always enjoy when I travel to different cities in around Indonesia, right? Even though that we are, they have different language, they have different foods, kind of thing. So characteristic also different, right? So we do have one of the area in Sumatra in western part in Padang, which is paternalistic. So sorry, paternalistic or maternalistic? Paternalistic, right? No, maternalistic, right? Yeah. So in that place, but I recommend you go there because you the ladies will ask you to marry you. So it's like a difference, like they will buy you. No, for real. This is serious, right? I mean, like, so, in terms of the risk, right? Risk is quite different. Pak Sunar already mentioned West Java is the characters. It's about the characters, right? In most of the big cities, they have high awareness of the risks and all that. But if you go to the remote areas, that's where the problem is. That's why in Indonesia we do have regional banks. We have 1,500 regional banks, or BPR. We call it BPR. They changed the name. You know that from Bank Perkreditan Rakyat, which is a credit bank, credit, to Bank Perekonomian, so economic bank of the people, right, in region area. That business model is actually a community bank. So they have brands, but they actually coming to the people. They come to the community physically. So they do the risk assessment by going to visit the customers. So this is a potential of collaboration also with the fintech, right? With the technology players, with M2P or JULO maybe. The collaborations need to be established there. So this BPR is very conventional, but they have the markets. They have the remote markets there, right? They are the one who knows their characters, the people characters in the community. So I think that I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you.
Right?
Sutosh is looking up flight tickets right now, actually, to wherever you mentioned.
So the city is Padang, so you need to go to Padang.
And you can enjoy the food as well.
Yeah, the food is really nice. If you like spicy, so Indians like spicy also, right? But that one, the curry is different, pa. So you need to go there and you need to marry there.
Okay. Patrick, how much more time do we have for questions, Patrick?
Another few questions is fine.
Okay, thank you, Pa.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to ask a question to Ms. Deepti, or Ibu Deepti. So my name is Patrick Simonakar. I'm a Deputy Policy Director from AFTECH. I'm supporting Pak Firlie here. Just wanted to ask, so when I was taking my master's degree in India, I graduated from Delhi University. One of my professors actually told me that two countries that are most comparable in terms of, like the issues they are facing socially, economically, as well as the solutions. If you don't take into account like Indonesia with like the connectivity with Malay ethnicity and so on, is actually Indonesia and India.
Systems in the world, right? RTGS happens real time, which is fantastic, right? Of course, that aids in net settlement, that aids in the trust of participating banks, that aids in the trust of consumers and merchants. So a lot of hard work has gone into that. Now, if we were to replicate this, right? And before I replicate, I'll also tell you, M2P has seen this not just in India up close, because we are in India, we have participated and we play a big role in the Indian UPI system, but we operate in the Philippines as well. Philippines wants to do similar. We operate in Africa, they want to do similar. We have already started doing some of this in the Middle East, right? So, and of course we want to do something similar in Indonesia.
Story to people in Indonesia, to stakeholders, we are shortly meeting Bank of Indonesia, inshallah, next week. And one of the questions that we are going to carry to them is how we can offer this technology, or this, it can be across verticals. It can be about learning and experience sharing, like Deepti said. It can be about building the policy framework that goes behind it. It can be about actually selling you the technology that we have used to build our digital public infrastructure. So it can be in various ways, and as rightly said, NPCI, which is the Payments Corporation of India, which is under RBI, has been to Indonesia, I believe, in 2019, before the COVID hit us all, and there were talks, and we have made announcements to have unified payment systems work between Indonesia and India by our ministers at the G20 summit. However, those talks have not yet translated into action, and this is what we hope to achieve by events like this, is part of that entire scheme that we are trying to make work. And about India, there's something, and here I speak not as a diplomat, I speak from my own experience, because when Aadhaar happened, India, it did not envisage that there would be a stack which would be later built on it, which would help in, bringing so many services together and technology. I don't think it was ever done with that intention when we first decided to have digital identities. So this is way back, I think 10 years ago. And there was not the difference or the clinching factor which I see as a human being, I'm not saying as a diplomat, is that we never deliberated so much about whether we should have digital data, whether government should own public data, who should be the owner. And it was done in complete earnestness only for the sake of bringing welfare to people directly. And somehow, when Aadhaar was conceived, the people behind it, whom I know very well by now, never thought of it as a like a commodity. And there was therefore no debate. There was no privacy debates also at that time, though later when it was implemented and when it was used to build DigiLocker or to build Jan Dhan, people started asking, and then our banks were linked to Aadhaar, and then our tax systems were linked to Aadhaar, and these questions Indonesia has been deliberating on building a policy framework, on building the right regulation, who should be the institution to implement it, and building that is taking a lot of time. That deliberation is taking a lot of time, but I know that eventually Indonesia will have to take that plunge too, and so we'll be here in whatever way we can support. Please feel free to reach out, and we can connect you to the Reserve Bank or to the NPCI. As an embassy, that's our role. And in fact, I would like to also take this opportunity to say that Reserve Bank of India and Bank of Indonesia are going to sign an agreement soon for having local currency settlements, which is also part of having integrated financial markets. So I'm here for any more questions and anything else I can contribute to. Thank you.
The size of a fintech industry is supposed to be, because we have 106 banks, we have about 78 non-life insurance companies, we have 60 life insurance companies. So every industry has got a certain number of players who kind of make it up. Fintech seems to be so vast and so diverse. What do you think was going to be the size of the fintech industry, let's say, when it matures? Will there be this many companies? Because there's that many services, right? And for Deepti, the takeoff on that question is that what did you see as your opportunity for coming into Indonesia?
Me first, right? So Indonesia has 8% of the GDP. The size of digital economy is 8% of the GDP for the digital economy, right? And it's growing. It's growing. I mentioned before, right? It's going to grow to 15% of the GDP. And when we slice down what are the digital economy, right? Majority are e-commerce, right? E-commerce, and most of the e-commerce payments now using fintechs, right? BNPL, e-wallet is there, and then of course virtual account, Chris, and all that. So it's all there. So the size is very big. Size is very big. And then I'm going to talk about the members, the 350 members. We have 25 different business models. We have peer-to-peer lending. We have payment system. Payments also we have open finance, a payment gateway, and then we have credit scoring, EQYC, financial advisors, insurtech, and so on and so on. And in terms of the current landscape, now fintech are collaborators, right? They are collaborating each other, right? For example, I run my own credit scoring company, right? I'm supporting a lot of my clients are peer-to-peer lending. obviously, because here in Indonesia, in terms of credit scoring, the banks are relying on slick data, but the peer-to-peer players are more, they want to be more innovative in terms of in terms of doing their operations. So they, rather than relying on the slick and FDC he mentioned before, so they're using innovative credit scoring. Right, so innovative credit scoring is one of the supporting for the fintech. I'm observing that this kind of technology is going to move not only to the fintech or to peer-to-peer lending, but into the banks, right? We also have been approached by the bank to provide the same service as the peer-to-peer lending, because they want to have the similar technologies that the peer-to-peer lending have. The eKYC also has been popular in the banking sector. So if you are asking me how big the size of the fintech, I will say as big as the financial sectors here in Indonesia, and the room to grow are massive. We also blessed being supported by the OJK, the regulator, that we need to collaborate with the banks also. They facilitated us doing that also. They even organize some events, for us to explain what are the products that we are doing and what are the things that we can collaborate. And while talking about the collaborations, I want to touch also the international collaborations. AFTECH is supporting international collaborations. We have signed MOUs with our counterparts in ASEAN, in Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. So we are facilitating that kind of collaboration also. Why? Because digital finance is borderless, right? I mean, like we are also we support the government's initiative to create borderless payments. For example, Indonesia has signed agreement for the CRIS, the QR standards, with Thailand, Singapore, and what's the other one? Malaysia. Yeah, Malaysia. So in other words, that if we have bank accounts here in Indonesia, we can pay in Thailand. In those countries, we can pay using CRIS, right? So this is something that also we are pushing to collaborate, not only the governments but the fintech players also, right? So I agree. The collaborations need to be enforced. Not only the fintechs ecosystems, but the financial sectors also with the banks, as well as the international collaboration. So I also expecting maybe India, Indonesia, we do have a lot of similarities, UPIs, CRIS, and all that, and M2P. I'm glad that they are already here in Indonesia very quick. Last time I met them, it's not there yet. So this time we are here. Oh my God! So I am expecting a lot of like fintech company coming from India coming to Indonesia, which is a good thing, right? I'm happy, Like I don't know about everybody else, but I'm happy, So Deepti already mentioned about similarities in the technical sides, but like Indonesia, India has a lot of similarities, right? For those of you who just arrived first time in Jakarta, you drive around, you will notice that a lot of Graha building, right? Graha building, right? It's house in India, right? House, right? and you don't see this in India, right? I mean, like the buildings, you don't see like Graha, you don't see that, but you see here. Yeah, and folk stories like Rama Sinta is very popular here. So you can tell the same story in India, in Indonesia. So, Pak, you can go to Padang, you tell Rama and Sinta story, you will be a superstar there, you know. And then bring curry, you know, like, and you know, like the food also, you know, a lot of similarities. I don't want to go on any further, but thank you.
Thanks, guys. A big round of applause to the audience. I think we've, to the panelists, I think we've ended on a very spicy note. So thank you for your Padang intel. And Ashutosh, if you need any more, please don't hesitate to contact Firlie. So thank you so much, the panelists, Prashant, Manoj, Firlie, Sunar, and Deepti. Please, another round of applause. We'll do a quick photo shoot with them. Poonam, can you give the token of appreciation as well?